I spent years thinking my problem was motivation. Years. I had lists, I had goals, I had vision boards. And believe me, I love my vision boards. But, I also had podcasts playing in my ears every morning, in the shower, even in the bath, um, just trying to pump myself up to go after the things that I wanted in life. I did all the things, and I would feel it for a few hours, maybe even a few days. And believe me, this was a daily occurrence. And and then I would feel absolutely nothing. Back to flat, back to going through the motions, back to wondering what the heck is wrong with me. Just what's the word? The best word, numb. And here is what I eventually figured out. Motivation was never the problem. And I have a feeling it is not yours either. I want to describe something and tell me if this sounds familiar. You get inspired, something lights you up, you get so excited about it, conversation, a video, a moment of, brief laugh, a brief moment of clarity, I should say. And for a little while, you really, really feel it. Like, that like, yes, let's do this. The pull forward towards something, if you will. And that the sense that you're like meant for something so much bigger than this. And then I don't know if you're neurodivergent and neurospicy. I am, and this has happened to me more the times than not. Then that overwhelming feeling comes in. Or maybe the doubt. I can't do this. Who am I to do this? Or the exhaustion. I'm just too tired to do this again. And you tell yourself, I'll start when things calm down. I'll start when I have maybe more energy. I'll start when the kids are out of the house. I'll start when I feel ready. But you and I both know it's never going to calm down, and you're never going to be ready. Um, And then, that excitement, that feeling fades, and you're back exactly where you started. Except now, there is this extra layer of guilt on top of that because you didn't fall through again. And somewhere inside you is this quiet fear. What if I'm just not the kind of woman who actually does it? That really hurts saying that, right? And so I want to talk you out of that fear today because I think you've been carrying it for far too long. And here's the thing about motivation that nobody tells you. Motivation is a fuel, and fuel only works if you have a destination. When we have lost a sense of who we are, when we have spent years being everyone's everything else and forgotten what we actually want, motivation has nowhere to go. So it like revs up, feeling exciting for a moment, and then it burns out pretty quickly. Not because you're weak, but because there's no direction for it to travel. And then all those doubts comes, attacking you, right? It's not that you don't have a motivation problem. You just have a disconnection from self problem. And those two things require completely different solutions. Motivation strategies, the morning routines, the habit trackers, the accountability partners, they work beautifully for women who already know who they are and what they are building towards. But for the women who have lost themselves, for women, what I call the season of stirring, those strategies feel like pushing a freaking car uphill. It's exhausting, temporary, and deeply, demoralizing when they don't work. So, your starting point is not motivation. The starting point is identity. It's reconnecting slowly, gently with the woman who you were before you disappeared into everyone else's life. So, I also want to say something about the stirring itself. That feeling you carry, quiet, knowing that you're meant for more, the restlessness that just, won't go away, or maybe it's anxiety showing up. No matter how much you try to talk yourself out of it, I know it can feel like a problem, like something, maybe you feel like something's wrong with you for wanting this, for wanting more. Like you feel like, why can't I just be content with where I am and where my life is now? Because your life is already full, right? But I want you to hear this. Stirring is not restlessness. Stirring is actually direction. It is your future self trying to get your attention, like, hello, you know, you are made for something incredible and we need to get it out. There's somebody out there that needs what you offer or what you're going to build. It's a part of you that has not given up on who you were always meant to be. So every woman that I have watched stepped fully into her reinvention had a season of stirring. Every woman. So you're not alone, which is good, but every single woman has all went into this stirring season. The difference between the woman who decided to move and the woman who stayed stuck was not talent, it was not timing, it was not resources or circumstances. It was whether they decided the stirring was real. And it is real. It's very, very real. And you are not crazy for feeling it. And you are not too late to answer it, no matter what your age is. It is not too late. So, I want to share for me when I was in my stirring season, I was actually at what I felt like the height of my entrepreneurial career. I've went through many seasons of this actually. When I first left the Department of Defense as a contractor to be a stay-at-home mom, there was a stirring season there, and that's how I got into entrepreneurialism, which I went from not even knowing what the heck it really meant. And I went into network marketing, had no idea anything about that industry because I worked, Department of Defense. And so that was completely out of character for me to do that. But when I got into it and I saw the possibilities and what people could do with this, specifically women and how it can change their lives, that really transformed my thought process and who I was and realized I am meant for more and I am meant to, share this opportunity with women. And, that has really been my career path for the last 19, 20 years, if you will. And the next stirring season is when I was at the height of that career path and I was making seven figures a year in the industry. And I felt this stirring, like I was called for more. But I was really capped at what I was able to do because of my company that I was with had very strict policies and procedures for their contractors. And for me, I was having that call to do something more, but I didn't really know exactly what that was. I know it was within the coaching industry, if you will, and I started toying with the idea of the podcast. And so I ended up, taking that step and I resigned from that. And so there was a season where, oh my goodness, when you walk away from significant income and have no more income coming in, it's like, what did I do? And I went in that identity crisis and that season of stirring. and, anxiety and self-doubt and I'd start, make a little progress, then I would stop and pull back and keep going. And then I'd have that guilt, that repetitive cycle. And then I was like, okay, planners, and then hired coaches. And it wasn't, they, there was something, it was the identity piece that was missing for me. Like these little things would work temporarily. And I would get very, very motivated, listen to the podcasts, listen to the books and reading and um, all of the things. But the shift when I realized it wasn't that I was lacking motivation. It was when I started addressing that identity piece instead. And that's whenever I started realizing what was happening and it started to click for me. That clarity came in. And it wasn't perfect, you know, but that's whenever the momentum it started to build and things started happening for me, and I started getting guest appearances requests on my podcast, and a higher volume of downloads, and everything just started clicking, and that's when it just shifted for me. And it all started so when I was reconnecting with myself instead of just trying to push harder and do all the things. And it wasn't until that clarity kicked in. And I know I'm not the only one has been in this place, and which is why I made this channel. And if you're in this season of stirring, if you have been feeling that pull and you keep stopping yourself, I want you to know something. You do not have to figure out your whole path right now. Promise you, you do not. Like I literally take one day at a time. So you just have to decide that this stirring is real, that this desire, this feeling you have, and the next step becomes clear after that. So if you want to talk about what that next step looks like for you specifically, come find me on Instagram. Message me the word reinvent and tell me where you are in this stage, in this season. And I read every single message, and I would love, love, love to hear your story. So you are not behind, you are not broken, you are just in the stirring. And that means you are closer, so much closer than you think. So I'll see you in the next episode.